Kevin. It's so good to have you from ModMyMods. So just tell our viewers a little bit about what you do at ModMyMods and what an awesome, amazing computer geek you are. And I say that with love.
Well, thank you again for having me on. It's a pleasure to be here. I am Kevin, also known as Big Kevin, as you can see. Big Kevin at ModMyMods, and I am the CMO. So basically, I take care of any of the PR stuff, any of the sales, marketing, and basically all around doing everything. But as you said, yes, I am a very, very big geek and have been doing computers and all sorts of things, as you can see behind me with all of the computers and things. And obviously, we kind of built a studio for gaming and streaming and basically doing all sorts of fun things. So that's pretty much my gig. I get to have a lot of fun and get to play games, do videos, do video editing, graphic design, pretty much a little bit of everything. So it's quite a bit of fun, actually.
Sounds fun, and it looks like NASA control or something, but a little cooler.
We tried to go a little above and beyond when we started making this thing. So yes, it is incredibly quiet in here. It's nice and peaceful, actually.
Oh, that's great. So you do a lot of the creative work for ModMyMods. What does your typical workflow look like?
I mean,
like what kind of software are you using, and what kind of power do you need? So go ahead.
So mostly I'm doing a lot of Adobe products, anything from Photoshop, Illustrator, Premiere, After Effects, all of it, InDesign, anything from creating print ads to display cards to 20-foot banners to making visual effects and different changes to the, the videos that we're doing. So for me, it's kind of important to have that big workstation mentality. I mean, what I'm working on now is no slouch. It's a 7980XE and a 2080 Ti and all sorts of really big high-end things, but it's mostly because of what we're doing. You need the processing power to be able to go in between Photoshop and Illustrator and Premiere and After Effects and just flying around. Which usually and typically requires quite a bit of processing power.
And most people like yourself thinks it needs to be on a workstation, a tower.
Of course.
But I did a little sales job before the interview talking about our studio laptops and basically both the AORUS line, which is our gaming line, and it's configured especially for gaming, and our AERO line, which is configured for creating, but you can game on it because duh.
Absolutely.
But it was a little bit of a sell with you, but you were looking over the specs. What and I give you some use case. So I just want you to tell our viewers, I could talk about it all day, but I'd love to hear your opinion.
So when we were talking, I mean, obviously you have multiple different versions of it. You have the AERO line, you have the AORUS line, and I mean, people are starting to make their own laptops. I mean, there's other manufacturers, and why would you want to pick one of the AERO or the GIGABYTE versions over any of the others? Well, I guess what it comes down to is, I guess when I first started doing a lot of this, you needed the tower. You needed the crazy workstation, kind of like what I have now. I definitely need it for certain things that we're doing. However, that being said, a lot of these laptops that are coming out, and especially like the AERO and the AORUS edition, are have incredible processing power in them. It's unbelievable that you're jamming an i7, it's the 9750 into a laptop, which is bananas. But then you're also pairing it up with either the GTX or the RTX card, whichever version you might go with, which, to be perfectly honest with you, is actually relatively comparable to like my massive tower that's sitting over here, which is honestly a little unusual, to be perfectly honest with you. I mean, laptops didn't usually have this much power unless you spent a lot of money. I mean, if you spend $3,000–4,000 on one laptop, you're talking a lot of money, and that you could almost build a tower for. Whereas now some of the AERO stuff that's coming out and the AORUS stuff, it's actually reasonably priced and has some incredible processing power. So like the one that I'm looking at here, I mean, yes, it's $2,300 bucks. However, it has the i7. It comes with the 16 gigs. It's got 512 gigs of SSD, which should be more than enough. And then it also comes with a 2070, which is
Right.
All right. So that's one step below what I have over here. Are you kidding?
Right.
That's
And what the model you're talking about, and that's the Aero 15 OLED, not to mention it comes with an OLED panel.
Exactly. I mean,
right?
you're talking an incredible screen. I mean, a comfortable keyboard. It has it's all RGB and glowy and does all of the fun, you know, dance effects and all of that. Yep, as you can see right there.
See if we can get it on camera. Here we go.
There you go. Yep, you got the rainbow stuff going on, which is cool. You know, if that's what you want to do, that's cool.
And you can turn it off too. If you don't like the lights, you can turn it off.
Most importantly, you can turn it off. Yes.
Customizable if you don't like the rainbow.
Yes.
The model you just mentioned is our Aero 15 OLED XA. And that is actually something I have with Anthony Jones of Robot Pencil. He's our Aero art ambassador, and just so you know the kind of power he can play with that, at Adobe Max, he was demoing for us, and he was running Unreal, Photoshop, and 3D Coat at the same time with no chug or no stutter. I mean, he was smooth as silk and going. He was running a gaming mod that he built. It was insane to watch that, just multitasking a beast, not overheat. Yeah, the fans went off, but you know, I'm gonna say if you're gonna multitask with heavy lifting programs, it's kind of good that the fans go off.
Yep, absolutely. And you know, that's kind of notorious too for laptops. I mean, like back in the day, I had a laptop that I had to have a literal box fan and then would set the laptop on top of it so I could do my, you know, the WoW raids or whatever project I was working on. But I mean, now even when I was at we were at CES and we got to see some of the laptops that are out, and the way that the heat sinks are designed and the airflow and everything like that, it's actually quite unique. I mean, yes, it does, you know, still exert most of the heat from the bottom of it and out the back and whatnot. But I was very surprised that running one most of the day, doing like demo and showing the specs and everything like that, wasn't like extremely hot. It wasn't really crazy hot to the touch either, you know, which does happen, especially on all sorts of different laptops and gaming laptops and these crazy high-end ones. I mean, you burn your legs sometimes. So.
Right, and it doesn't happen. And we never suggest that you keep a laptop on your lap. That's why they started calling them notebooks, because we wanted people to move away from that. But we do, we have an amazing R&D team at GIGABYTE Notebooks. And one of the things they really have focused on is the cooling system, because it's not just, if a laptop overheats, it's hot to the touch and it can hurt you. Having a cooling system is essential for longevity of your machine. And so we actually build really high quality machines that have longevity. We want you to stay with us for a really long time and support you through that. So it's one of the reasons I mean, yes, I work for GIGABYTE, but the reason I work for GIGABYTE is I'm impressed with the quality and the attention. Otherwise, I would have stayed in Indy. The other thing is they're aluminum. What did you think of that when you saw them at CES?
I was actually kind of impressed. I mean, like, you know, typically everything's made out of plastic or, you know, really hard ABS or whatever. And I was actually relatively impressed with that, because not only is it a lightweight material, but it also helps to dissipate the heat. So it's almost like it's a huge heat sink that is allowing all of the hot that comes with having a crazy screen, having a high-end processor, and having a high-end GPU inside of it that is running relatively warm. But it just basically helps with getting rid of all of that heat and allows again, the length of the time of usage, as well as how long you're actually going to have it. I mean, it's overall tenfold increase, because it's not just, well, killing itself sitting on the table, you know, just producing all this heat.
Yeah, it works great.
I was again very impressed with the way that they look. I mean, the screen is incredible. The refresh rate is incredible. The fact that everything is lickety split and crazy fast. I mean, yeah, look at that. You're showing a screen on another camera, and it's like there's
Right?
no flicker, there's no flash, there's no delay. It's all right
Look at
there.
that. It says ModMyMods.
Hey,
There we
look at that.
go.
I
Little
like that
back
website.
promo.
I've seen it before somewhere.
Right. Oh my gosh, Kevin, I'm so glad you came on here. So now that we've had this check and you have played with these machines, because again, you were at CES and that's where I got to meet you, which was so cool. So has that changed your opinion about absolute need? You know, I mean, we can all have our preferences. But
Absolutely.
do you think it's now gotten to the point of, do you absolutely need a tower, or now is it getting closer and closer to it's a preference?
You know, I'm very impressed with how fast everything moves. I'm hands down can definitely say that it is very close. But then it comes out to personal preference, right? And to me, I'm old school, right? I want the big tower. I want it glowy, and I want it to do things. However, when your laptop can pretty much do almost the exact same thing that your tower, yeah, it makes me think. And it makes me wonder about, do you actually really need the massive big thing? And can you get by, well, maybe not even get by, can you actually use this as a replacement? Which I think that the AERO laptops and the AORUS stuff that's coming out is incredible. And I think it's relatively close to having that big tower processing power. I mean, you're talking about having all sorts of crazy, crazy hardware that is actually usable and doesn't overheat. You got an all-in-one type of package that is just hand in hand with my tower that's sitting over here. So it's at the next point of buying a new tower or laptop or whatever it might be, you might consider, depending on where you are and if you're traveling or if you need to work remotely, which now is becoming a more prevalent thing, you definitely would not want to put aside any of these laptops. I mean, these things are crazy. The fact that you have that much power and that much oomph inside of a laptop now is just unbelievable. It's
It's so cool to see where things have come, right? As somebody who started building your own PCs in the 90s, it's so exciting, you know, to see how thin they are. And oh, I did forget to mention, one of the things that most laptops, and I've had many, okay, again, techie girl, I own like 4 machines of my own, from, you know, a little desktop to multiple portable devices, and then my work stuff that I use. And we have more ports. Like, we brought back the SD slot, and we've got a Thunderbolt, and you can put in dual monitors. You can, and have your external storage. That was one of the things I was getting kind of bummed out about 4 or 5 years ago as an indie who does a lot of creative work. I lost my ports. I'd end up with 2 or 3 ports, and I'd be like, not enough, you know? So this has 9 IO ports.
Holy cow.
Yeah.
I honestly didn't know that. I mean, I knew that they brought back the SD card, which I thought if you were to do away with that, especially as a creator of anything, you're using a camera that typically uses a class 10 SD card. So why would I need an external? I mean, why do I need this? I shouldn't need this, you know? It should just have it on the side of the laptop and just jam it in and let it rip. However, yeah, exactly.
My SD card is in there.
And there you go. Yeah.
Right.
And the fact that you have all of those USB ports and all of the IO ports is incredible, because you can actually use multiple things with it. You know, you could, if you wanted to be honest, just plug in a monitor to it and a keyboard and a mouse and just set the laptop somewhere. You could do that, and it would still give you all the processing power in the world that you'd need. So another great part of the new AERO setup. And then you also have the one thing that I was looking at was the IPS panel. I think that one is for, yeah, it can run at 144 hertz.
That is with the, yeah, that's a different panel than the OLED. I believe that's the AERO 15 Classic. Also in our AERO 17s, we have FHD, and we also have a UHD that's 240.
Still, you're talking about
the AORUS.
It's unbelievable that you have that much processing and an awesome screen like that inside of a tiny laptop. It's
Yeah, and again, you're getting a lot of machine for the price. Yeah, to me, it's so competitively priced. It almost feels like, you know, from those old 70 car sales commercials, it's crazy town. But it is, because it's a really good deal. Everything is calibrated per unit to optimize performance. It's just, it's really solid, very stable. You don't have everything shutting down on you all the time or getting hot. I love it.
I am impressed as well. I mean, you know, the fact that you have everything like that inside of a laptop, again, is something that's not, I didn't think that would be happening 5 years ago. Right, yeah, exactly. Oh, yeah. I mean, unbelievable, so.
Yeah, well, thank you so much. And let's just talk real quickly. I'm sure you've done plenty of work from home over the years as a techie. Me too, 17 years of remote or working from home or on the go. So most of us that can work from home have been sent home to work, right? So any tips on how to stay productive, or how to just stay focused?
Okay. I typically work from home. I also work at the shop. I work at the studio. And prior to this, I would have to work remotely all the time. Mostly having a laptop that's capable for what you're doing is a huge, huge thing. I mean, if you're working at home and you have a big tower and you have a big setup or whatever, okay, fine, I get it. You know, you have the ability to be able to mimic what you have at work. Cool, I get that. For me, that's pretty much kind of what I'm doing. However, when we're traveling, we're at these shows and we're doing stuff, you need something, well, especially in my line of work, you need something that's going to be able to handle all of the things that you're doing. So, you know, probably one of the biggest things is making sure that you have the processing power and the capabilities that you need for doing your line of work at home. So whether you're just responding to emails and doing word sheets and spreadsheets and that type of thing, that requires a certain amount of power. However, you know, if you're doing graphic design, you're doing Photoshop, you're doing Illustrator and that type of stuff, that's kind of where you start to dabble into more processing power, more needs. I mean, you start diving into stuff like 3ds Max and Cinema 4D, or you know, SolidWorks, or any of those CAD programs and whatnot. Then you're starting to talk major power.
Right.
And that's kind of where I tend to recommend that people make sure that they have the ability to do what they need to do with the equipment that they have. That being said, obviously these AERO laptops, and that's kind of why we're talking, is where this comes into play. You have the ability to go and buy whatever laptop you want, and with whatever processor you want, whatever screen you want, graphics card, all that stuff. But basically, it comes down to, what are you going to use it for? And that's one of our big fundamentals with doing a major computer build or a laptop or anything, is what is the main processing going to be doing. So for me, my line of work, I need something crazy. I need a crazy CPU. I need a crazy graphics card. I need all sorts of space and the capability of being able to plug in all sorts of stuff to it. I mean, right now, I have 4 hubs that are plugged into my tower, and every single hub is just jammed with stuff. Right. So when you're on the road, obviously you can't necessarily do all of that, but you need a computer that will still be able to handle at least 5 or 10 or whatever. Now that's my line of work. But that kind of still comes down to the same fundamental of what are you going to use it for. So these AERO laptops, not only are they priced at a reasonable price, but they really have the processing power to do a lot of things. So that being said, when you're working at home and you're having to do multitasking like checking your email as well as doing the Photoshop, as well as doing your graphic design, as well as doing whatever else that you might be doing, that's where you have to weigh the cost over the hardware. Right? You can go out and buy a $70 off-the-shelf laptop and it will probably work for a little, maybe.
A little while. Yeah.
Maybe, you know, I mean, and again, it depends on what you're doing. If you got 20 Chrome tabs open and you're having to go back and forth and then you have to open a Word and you're doing Excel and everything like that, that $70 laptop's gonna like self-combust,
crash.
you know?
Yeah,
So,
yeah. I just wrote an article on the Gigabyte Notebook blog about that very story of don't listen, because what most people don't factor in of just being online, the GUI or the graphic user interface for our viewers is heavy on most cloud solutions anymore. So even if you're only using cloud-based software and it's not on your hard drive, you're still pulling from your GPU. And that'll stutter a lower end computer. By the way, besides the AERO, for work at home folks who aren't doing heavy like Photoshop or AutoCAD programs or things like that, the AORUS 7 is a great little, like if you've got an online business, or if you take a look at the AORUS 7 or the AORUS 5s, they're gaming laptops, but just like the AERO, they have a lot of that performance. So if you're not needing the RTX Studio Driver certification, because the AEROs are certified as studio laptops, they still have amazing capacity in the AORUS 7 and the AORUS 5. And they're a very good price point for people working from home, doing e-commerce, working on websites, doing social media, reports, things like that. So less heavy lifting, but still needs to be able to multitask.
Absolutely. Like a perfect example, I got a friend that does a lot of stock exchange. And that is crazy on hardware. I mean, you want to talk about hammer and hardware, that's what it does. And he was having an issue with, honestly, just a garbage laptop. And I actually think he went with one of the crazy high-end Gigabyte laptops. But, you know, when he was first looking at everything, he's like, these are relatively cheap for what you're getting inside of them. For under $1,500, you can still get a pretty banging laptop. And, which will handle almost anything that you're going to throw at it when it comes to multitasking like that. So, yes, it might be that high performance gaming laptop, which, you know, a lot of people do think that matters, you know, and is great, you know, it's be able to do all of the things that you're doing, and then you want to play Fortnite after, you can, you know.
Exactly.
So
you get the best of both worlds. I mean, you can create and game on both machines. One is calibrated specifically, like the AORUS is calibrated specifically for gaming, but of course you can create on it. The AERO laptops are calibrated for creation, but of course you can game on them. It depends on your focus, if you're primary, you know, and what you like. It gets down to preference on design. The AERO is built for people who want a sleeker, more elegant design. Oh, look at this. She has an AORUS 15. I don't have it turned on though. Hang on a second. Oh, wait, I do. There we go. This is the AORUS 15.
Yeah.
And it's got the FHD screen. So you can see the difference. It is an FHD screen. The OLED was super clear. You get a little waggle there, but that's okay because it has a killer refresh rate.
Exactly.
So.
I mean, it's 6 is half and a dozen is the other, right? I mean, it's great for what it is and what it costs. The amount of power that you get out of it, and again, being able to make sure that you have the ability to do all of the things that you need to do is why we pride ourselves on what we do. You know, I mean, you don't need anything crazy like this if you're not doing all sorts of craziness like we are. But again, it comes back to the same question. What are you going to use it for?
Exactly. Exactly. And thank you so much for having this talk. I hope that you remain well. And I look forward to more chats in the future. And thanks again. So this was Kevin from ModMyMods. Thanks for taking the time. And we will chat at you later.
Thanks. Bye.